All right, ladies and gentlemen, it is week 2 of the PTS of this upcoming Scalebreaker patch, and ZeniMax has made quite a few changes, and honestly, these changes make me feel a lot better about this coming patch, but there's still a lot of changes I would really like to see, but we're going to get into that as we go on here. Let's jump right into it, guys. So the first really big thing that I think everybody wants to hear: many core combat abilities such as sprint, dodge, bash, and bar swapping can fail to occur if cast within 100 milliseconds of activating an ability. This is under investigation with high priority, and we're working on getting it fixed as quickly as possible. This is something that I desperately wanted to see in the patch notes this week, was that the change that was making the PTS feel so clunky last week was actually a bug. It was not something that they wanted to happen. It was not something that they intended. It was just a bug. And this is so important. And I had talked about this when I was on the PTS, and I made a video about how I really didn't like how the PTS felt. And it was specifically because of this and, of course, the cast time on ultimates. But this was bigger than the cast time, in my opinion. Having this cooldown where you just couldn't cast after an ability. I'm not sure if this was actually it. On the PTS, I only had an issue with Bash itself, but I am so happy that ZeniMax put this in the notes. I'm so happy that this was a bug and not an intended change by them. So I cannot wait for them to fix this, and I can actually get to testing some of the other stuff on the PTS, because as long as this is in place, honestly, I don't even want to do combat on the PTS, because yeah, 100 milliseconds, it doesn't sound like a long time, but for a high-end squishy build, that's a lot of time to die. So Flame Clench and Dizzy Swing, the animations appear out of sync for the receiving target, but not the caster. So hopefully this gets fixed in the upcoming patch that we'll see next week. They're just kind of going over the issues they have here, but they haven't made the changes to them. And this is very typical for the second week of the PTS. We don't usually see many big changes, if any big changes at all. Just kind of like, okay, we see some problems here, and we will be addressing these in a future PTS patch. And then 7th Legion is also proccing and not proccing in areas that it should and shouldn't be. So they will also be fixing that as well. So moving on to a few of the combat changes that have come in. Overload, the heavy attack from this ability and its morphs can no longer be interrupted. This is actually very interesting. I didn't know that this was interruptible. I was under the impression you couldn't bash a heavy attack overload already. So there we go. For the Templar Puncturing Strikes, this ability and its morphs will now use an older version of camera controls, predating the adjustments with Murkmire. This was done to prevent many of the errors occurring explicitly with gamepad mode. So this looks like a big thing for especially console players, and I've heard this a lot from console players. I don't myself play on console, but they always tell me that jabs is really tough to use on console, and I always actually hear a lot of problems that the console players have that I don't see on the live PC servers. So hopefully this makes jabs a little bit easier to use on consoles. Now, Living Dark has been changed as well. The healing on this ability was reduced by 55%. Yeah, this is a lot better, I think. Living Dark was really, really strong. So I think this is going to be a lot more balanced than it used to be. But we'll still see if the healing's a bit overtuned on this, because this is still a lot of healing over time. But I do like that that this was changed. The tooltip was at least changed. Now, fun fact, this actually says that the heal was incorrectly referencing a much stronger heal. And it was actually healing you at this value on the PTS Lats Patch 2. I didn't actually test out the heal. I just looked at the tooltip for it. So the tooltip should be normalized now. Now, Restoration Staff has also had a pretty big change to Healing Ward. Now, last patch they made it so Healing Ward will heal you for 25% of the shield strength every second, and as long as the shield is still on you. They've now changed that to 100% of the shield's remaining strength every second. However, it can no longer critically strike. But man, this is a buff. 25% on a crit chance versus the 100% on no crit. I would take this any day, man. This is really, really strong for Healing Ward. Honestly, they might be over-buffing Healing Ward with this change here. We're going to have to see how this plays out. I will likely be on the PTS, not this week, but next week. And the reason, like I said, is because they still have that issue where we're waiting after casting a skill for the game to kind of catch up. So it feels really clunky to play on the PTS right now. So once they fix that, I will definitely want to test out this Healing Ward. But from what I see here, man, this is going to be a lot stronger than it is on the PTS, and much stronger than Healing Ward currently is on live. Now, medium armor, evasion no longer grants you major expedition when you take damage, and the expedition granted from this ability will no longer trigger off of area of effect damage over time. Soul Trap, this ability in Consuming Trap will now only hit one enemy instead of two. This is probably a good change because they buffed the crap out of Soul Trap for next patch, and having it hit two opponents means it's essentially a double dot, but that's probably a better idea now. And then the Splitting Soul Morph will now hit 6 enemies instead of 3, and the radius remains 5 meters, which means that hitting the maximum will be very difficult because we don't have a huge radius on it. But there we go. So we get the AoE here. It'll be interesting to see what the tooltips are like between the two of these when you go for different morphs. So yeah, we'll check that out. Now here is some really big changes, and I really like this. Protective, they've reduced it to 1190 physical and spell resistance at 160 CP legendary on your jewelry, down from 1844. That is a massive nerf to Protective, and I think this is more than well warranted. Protective is the most OP jewelry trait in the game, and that's just speaking purely statistically on the live server. A protective piece of jewelry gives you way more stat than any other piece of jewelry does. And that's just comparatively to like your Mundus or to stats in your 2, 3, 4 pieces, etc. Protective just outperforms everything. So with this nerf, Protective should actually be in line with your other jewelry traits. If you guys are running 3 out of 3 golden Protective, you only lose about 3% mitigation. So you are going to take a hit, but you know, I really like this because now you actually have to give something up to get that armor instead of just getting so much more armor than what you're giving up for it. So I think this is definitely a very healthy balance change, and it makes me feel a little bit better about how balance will feel coming into this next patch because tanks will have to give up a lot more to stay tanky. So there have been a few fixes to just some of these sets here. Gossamer was also changed, so it no longer has the 10% chance to proc, but instead it only lasts for 2 seconds instead of 6 seconds. So it'll be a little bit more consistent to use, but still you won't have a super long uptime on it. The Grace of Gloom, the major evasion from this set will now properly apply to area of effect damage. Remove the 10% proc again, but reduce the healing to 2,000 from 3,440, and remove the hidden 500 millisecond cooldown from the heal proc. So another change there just to make this set more reliable. His Spark was fixed so the major evasion should apply properly when you get hit by AoEs. Oblivion's Foe, this set now grants 1,000 weapon and spell damage to your Soul Trap ability rather than increasing its damage by 100%. Now this I actually like because Oblivion's Foe, let's say you actually want to use it for a damage build, this is still a viable set to run. However, if you want to use Oblivion's Foe on a very low damage build, it gives you access to quite a powerful dot on even a lower damage build, whereas the 100% bonus wouldn't give you what this will give you if you're already playing a low damage spec. So I do like it because it opens up running this set across a different variety of specs. This set also a very unpopular set because the Soul Trap ability really sucks on the live server. So probably we'll see this set coming into a little bit more popularity. We'll see how Soul Trap works on the PTS with these changes here. And now here's the big one, guys. Pirate Skeleton, reduce the duration of the proc to 10 seconds from 12, increase the cooldown to 20 seconds from 15. The Minor Defile is now Major Defile. This is the best tank set in the game for a solo tank survival perspective, and ZeniMax has nerfed it to the ground. Now, I know for a fact that a majority of tanky PvP builds like to run Pirate Skeleton, so this is a huge nerf to a lot of tanky PvP builds, but I think it's totally warranted. I think this is more than okay, and I think this is exactly what the game needs. I've said it for quite a while now that this game, everybody needs to be less bulky, and these changes here, they reflect that. We have Pirate Skeleton getting nerfed, which you can use on any class, any spec, any build, and it's very popular bulk set for PvP. And we also have Protective getting nerfed, which is any class, any build, again, and it's very popular in PvP. I think that this is a really healthy change because it will just encourage people to either double down on their tankiness so they won't have tank damage everything that their build has, or it will force them to either give up some of that durability to keep the damage that they want to have. So it'll just result in more balanced builds all around, and I really like this change for that reason. Spectre's Eye, they increased the cooldown to 10 seconds from 6 seconds, but the duration has been increased to 5 seconds from 3, so should be relatively the same for this set here. And, ladies and gentlemen, that is the end of these patch notes. So I want to thank you guys for watching this video. I would love to hear what you guys think about this set of patch notes. I actually really like a lot of these little fixes they've made, a lot of these little changes in this incremental patch. However, there's still a lot of issues like cast time on ultimate, the new sorcerer streak going through block and roll dodge, which apparently after testing on the PTS, it is still blockable, even though they said it's not supposed to be blockable. Maybe they leave that bug in. I won't be so upset. And then, of course, there's the Templar Eclipse, which did get a little bit of work this patch, but the stun morph did not get any rework this patch. Now, I didn't expect to see any changes to these 3 big issues this patch. However, I do expect to see ZeniMax do at least something or address them in the next upcoming PTS patch or the one after that, because we should start to see some changes to the combat abilities in the coming PTS patches if ZeniMax is going to make them before the live implementation of this patch. So I would love to hear what you guys think. I would love to hear what you guys liked or didn't like about this change and what you're hopefully looking forward to in the upcoming PTS patches. If you guys like this video, hit that like button. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button. I create regular ESO content, so be sure to stick around for some more. If you guys want to see some live stuff from me, you can always check out my Twitch, a link in the description down below. If you guys want to send in clips to be featured in the top 5 battles or send in a build to be featured on the channel, you can send that to KristoferESO@hotmail.com. If you guys are interested in our sponsor, What the Fast, they give you better ping to your favorite games. They are free to try for the first 14 days via the link below. And of course, there's no credit card to sign up, so if it doesn't give you what you're looking for, you can always just get rid of it. No harm, no foul. And then last but not least, if you guys really love the show and you want to help support it, you can always become a patron on Patreon. Without you guys' support, I would not be able to do this job, and I really love what I do, and I really love that I have this opportunity. So thank you guys so much just for helping out. Thank you guys so much for tuning in and watching today, and I hope to see you next time. Have a great night, everybody.